What do you mean we haven't had a night shift supervisor in 3 weeks? Xander Boyd stared at the report in disbelief, the numbers not making any sense. The restaurant chain he bought 6 years ago had 6 locations across the state. This one store 4 used to be their highest performing spot. But lately complaints had spiked and late shift productivity dropped hard. He'd trusted the district manager's reassurances, but something felt off. Xander ran a hand through his thick black beard, annoyed. "I'm going in." "Sir," his assistant Leo looked up from his laptop. "I said I'm going in. Tonight."
Disguised.
"No one from that location has ever met me in person, right?" Leo shook his head. "Not unless they were at the corporate summit 4 years ago, and you didn't attend that one." "Perfect. Set me up as a new trainee. Night shift." By 7 that evening, Xander had transformed. His sharp suit was gone, replaced with a faded black t-shirt, cheap sneakers, and a fake name tag that read Mason. His neatly trimmed beard looked messier, and a pair of glasses he didn't need helped seal the look. He looked like a guy desperate for a paycheck, not the man who signed their checks. The location sat on a busy corner open 24 hours, but clearly neglected. Trash was scattered near the entrance. Inside, the dining room was half-cleaned, lights flickering in one corner. 2 customers sat at a booth, ignored. Behind the counter, a teenage cashier scrolled through her phone, and a tall man in his late 30s barked at a line cook without glancing up. "Hey, I'm Mason," Xander said. "Starting tonight?" The manager, stocky, with tired eyes and a name tag that read Gavin, looked him over.
"Right."
"The new guy. You're late." "I was told 8. Gavin shrugged. "Whatever. Follow Jess. She'll show you around." Jess, the line cook Gavin had just yelled at, gave Xander a quick once-over and nodded. She looked exhausted, her apron stained with grease, hair tied back in a lazy bun. "You ever worked a grill?" "No, but I can learn." She handed him gloves. "You'll learn fast. We're short 2 cooks. One quit, the other got fired." "You're it." Xander blinked. "What about backup?" "You want backup?" "Talk to Gavin," she muttered, flipping a burger. "He's been saying help's coming for weeks." By 10, Xander's shirt clung to him with sweat. The kitchen was chaos. Orders piled up, Jess moved like a machine, and Gavin barked nonsense from the back while disappearing every 15 minutes. Another cook, Tony, came in at 11. A lanky guy with headphones hanging around his neck. He looked overworked too, but nodded politely. "You the new guy?"
"Yeah." "Hang tai."
"This place is a mess, but it pays." Then, at midnight it happened. There was a loud crash. Xander turned and saw Tony on the floor, groaning and holding his leg. A container of hot sauce had spilled over him, his back arched in pain. Jess gasped. "Tony, you okay?" Tony's face was pale. "My ankle can't move it," Jess looked around. Gavin was nowhere to be seen. The cashier up front didn't even look over. "Call someone," Xander shouted. Jess hesitated. "Gavin said we're not allowed to call ambulances unless it's life or death. Says it costs too much." Xander stared at her. "He what?" She shrugged helplessly. "Last guy who passed out from heat stroke? Gavin made him go sit outside until he cooled off." Xander dropped the spatula and stormed toward the office. "Where is he?" The office door was open. Gavin sat inside, eating chips and watching something on his phone.
"Tony's hurt," Xander said.
"We need help." Gavin didn't look up. "He's been dramatic all week. Tell him to walk it off." "He can't walk." Gavin finally looked up, annoyed. "You're new. You don't talk to me like that." Xander stepped closer. "And you don't leave someone on the floor in pain because you're too cheap to call for help." Gavin stood. "You want to keep your job, Mason. You better learn your place." Xander's jaw tightened. His cover could wait. Someone needed to help Tony. He turned, grabbed Jess. "Help me get him in a chair. We're taking him out front." Jess nodded, and they carefully lifted Tony, who winced the entire way. Xander flagged down a customer in the parking lot. "Can you call an ambulance? Please." The woman didn't hesitate. As sirens approached, Gavin finally stepped outside, looking annoyed. "You had no right." "I had every right," Xander said. "And tomorrow you'll understand why." He turned to Jess. "Thanks for helping. I won't forget that." Jess looked confused, but nodded. Xander watched the ambulance drive off, fists clenched. He'd seen enough. Tomorrow, they'd know who he really was. By 9 the next morning, Xander sat in his unmarked SUV across the street from Store 4, watching employees trickle out after their night shifts. His back ached slightly from the grill work, but his mind was sharper than it had been in weeks. He'd seen enough to know the surface-level reports were useless. What he needed now was clarity and accountability. He dialed Leo. "Bring HR and legal to the downtown office.
Now."
We've got decisions to make." By noon, Xander walked into Store 4 again, this time in a clean navy blazer, pressed shirt, and no disguise. The waitstaff on the midday shift didn't recognize him. That didn't matter. Gavin would. Xander didn't stop at the counter. He walked straight into the back office. Gavin sat at the desk, hunched over paperwork, chewing on a pen cap. The moment he looked up, his eyes narrowed. "I'm in the middle of inventory." "You're done with everything," Xander said, tone flat. Gavin stood slowly. "Excuse me?"
"I'm Xander Boyd."
"I own this company." The pen dropped. Gavin's face strained of color. Xander stepped aside. 2 HR reps moved in behind him. "You're being terminated effective immediately. Your conduct last night, your negligence, your treatment of employees, your refusal to follow emergency protocol, it ends here." Gavin looked toward the hallway, as if searching for an ally. "You can't just walk in and, I've already walked in. And I already did your job better than you last night in one shift." Xander didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "Leave your keys." Security's waiting outside. Gavin dropped the keys on the desk and walked out without another word. Xander turned to the HR reps. "Have legal send him the documentation by this evening. I want full incident reports from everyone working last night." With that, he stepped out of the office and into the kitchen. It was calmer now. Early afternoon meant a slow stretch between the lunch and evening spikes. He found Jess at the dish station, sleeves rolled up, hair tucked under a new cap. She paused when she saw him. "Hey," she said carefully. "Didn't expect to see you again." "You're not in trouble," Xander said. "Far from it." She nodded, unsure. "So, Mason's not your real name?"
"No."
"It's Xander. I own the chain." Jess grabbed a towel and wiped her hands, glancing toward the back exit. "Look, if this is about me helping Tony, it's about everything," he said. "You've been running that kitchen with zero support. Gavin was pocketing overtime, pay by cutting staff. We found the discrepancies this morning." Jess blinked. "Wait, seriously?"
"Yes."
"You're not imagining the pressure. It's real. And it ends now." She exhaled, slowly. "I thought I was losing it. Like, maybe I just wasn't fast enough. You've been holding this place together." He noticed a younger employee, maybe 17, watching from the prep station. She quickly turned away when he looked her way. "Who's that?" he asked. "Lena. High school student. She's new." Gavin used to scream at her for misplacing the condiments. He yelled at a minor? Jess nodded. "More than once. She stopped talking on shift. Just does her job and tries not to get noticed." Xander's jaw tightened. "I'll speak to her." Jess hesitated. "She's scared of anyone who looks like they're in charge. Then I'll come back after close, no jacket, no clipboard. Just me." Jess gave a small nod. That might work. By evening, Xander returned in a simple hoodie and jeans, slipping in through the back door 15 minutes before closing. The crew was cleaning up. Jess handed him a mop without a word, and together they worked in rhythm. The others didn't seem to notice who he was. It wasn't until Lena accidentally knocked over a bucket of sanitizer that Xander gently stepped in. "It's okay," he said quietly, kneeling to help her with the spill. She froze, eyes wide. "I'm not here to yell at you," he said. "And I'm not here to test you." She didn't speak, but she didn't back away either.
I'm Xander.
"I own the company. I worked the night shift yesterday. In disguise." Lena looked confused. "I saw how Gavin treated you. That won't happen again. You didn't deserve any of it." She glanced at Jess, who gave her a small nod of encouragement. "I just wanted to do a good job," Lena finally whispered. "But every time I made one mistake, he'd say I was useless. That I'd get someone sick and sued." "You're not useless," Xander said. "And you're not going anywhere unless you want to." He stood up slowly. "You're safe here now. If anyone talks to you like that again, you come to Jess. Or you come to me." Lena nodded, then returned to wiping the floor. Xander stepped out into the alley behind the store. The air was cooler now, the city quieter. Jess joined him a minute later, leaning against the wall beside him. "Never had a boss do that," she said. "Do what?" "Clean floors. Talk to a kid like she mattered." Xander looked out at the streetlights. "I lost track. Somewhere between spreadsheets and boardrooms. I forgot what it was like to work a line." "You're not the only one," Jess said. "We get district managers through here all the time. They look at charts, not people. That changes tomorrow." She raised an eyebrow. "I'm restructuring everything. Every store will have an employee rep, someone who works the floor reporting directly to me once a month."
No filters. No middlemen.
Jess let out a low whistle. "That's gonna rattle some cages."
Good.
"It should." She glanced at her phone. Midnight. Shift's over. "Want a soda from the machine?" Xander smiled. "Sure." They walked back inside together. Before they left, he handed her a small envelope. "What's this?" she asked, opening it. "Your promotion letter. Effective immediately. You're the new shift lead. And a raise substantial enough that you won't need overtime to survive." Jess stared at the paper, stunned. "You earned it 6 months ago," he said. "I'm just late catching up." She looked up, eyes glassy, but steady. "Thanks," she said. "Don't blow this place up too fast, though. Some of us still need the hours." "I'm not here to burn it down," he said. "I'm here to rebuild it right this time." Outside, the street was quiet again. But inside, something had shifted. And it wasn't going back. The next 48 hours were a blur of calls, meetings, and quiet reckoning. Xander didn't return to corporate headquarters. Instead, he set up a temporary office in an unused storeroom above store for an old break room that had been turned into storage by Gavin months ago. It had no windows and smelled faintly of fryer oil, but it was close enough to the front lines to matter. He brought in a folding desk, his laptop, and a second chair. By noon on day 3, he'd already met with every employee on the night and swing shifts one by one. No managers present. No forms. Just him, a legal notepad, and honest listening. Jess arrived last. She leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. "You really planning to manage from here?"
For now, Xander said.
"If they're comfortable talking to me in a closet, then this is where I'll be." She stepped in, pulled the chair back, and Saturday, so what's next? "I'm offering a program. Voluntary. Anyone who's been here longer than 6 months can sign up to mentor new hires. Paid hours. Structured. You'd be one of the first if you're interested." Jess blinked. "You mean like official training? With a budget and recognition. You shouldn't have to sink or swim because someone quit." She nodded slowly.
Yeah.
"I'd do that." "Good. We've also paused hiring until we audit every store's staffing ratios. Too many managers have been double counting hours or hiding vacancies." Jess's eyebrows lifted. "That's why we were always short. And why overtime was getting flagged, but no one could explain why," Xander said. But there's something else I need your help with. She leaned forward. Go on. Lena's not the only one who's been quiet. I've gotten 3 separate reports about a pattern: young women being assigned only cleaning tasks, not trained on equipment. No one's saying anything outright, but enough to suggest a bias. Jess's face darkened. That tracks. I asked Gavin once why Lena hadn't been taught the fry station. He said she was too timid for hot oil. Thought he was just being overcautious. He wasn't. He was making decisions based on appearance and assumptions. That ends now. Jess nodded. I'll keep an eye out, and I'll push training evenly. You'll lead it, Xander said. Effective today, you're the kitchen operations trainer for this store. We'll backfill your line position. She stared at him. You sure you want to put me in charge of that? I'm sure, he said. Because you've already been doing it without the title. She didn't smile, but her eyes settled in with a quiet certainty. Then I'll do it right. That night, Xander stayed after close again. Not to watch, but to clean. He picked up the deck brush from the mop closet without a word and began scrubbing the grout lines behind the fryers. No one said anything for the first 20 minutes. Then Tony limped in, leaning on a medical boot. You're not supposed to be working, Jess called from the other side of the kitchen. I'm not. Just needed to get out of my apartment, he said, sliding onto a milk crate. Figured I'd sit and heckle the guy doing my job. Xander glanced up. You're cleared to be here? Technically?
No.
But I'm not on the clock. Just visiting. Jess brought him a cold soda and set it beside him. You taking the paid leave? Tony nodded. HR called this morning. Said it was company policy now. Paid recovery time for workplace injuries. It is, Xander said. Retroactive to last quarter. Tony looked at him. You really meant it, huh? Not just a show. It's not a show if you don't leave after curtain call. Tony chuckled. You sound like my uncle. He used to say stuff like that. Jess leaned against the prep table, wiping her hands. You know, before all this, I was thinking about quitting. Thought maybe I was just bad at this.
You're not, Xander said.
You were just working under someone who didn't want you to succeed. Tony glanced at the clock. You gonna visit the other stores too?
Already started, Xander said.
Store 2 gets a surprise inspection tomorrow, and I'll be back here next week. Rotating visits. No schedule. Just shows up when he feels like it. Like the Fry Station ferry, Tony muttered. Just laughed for the first time all week. Around 2 in the morning, the last of the crew left. Xander stayed behind, finishing inventory manually. He didn't trust the numbers yet. Halfway through counting frozen patties, the front door rattled. He walked out cautiously. A man stood outside, mid-40s, wearing a corporate polo with a clipboard in hand. Didn't expect to find you here, the man said. Xander, right? I am. And you are? Drew Connolly, District Manager. I oversee stores 2 through 6. Xander narrowed his eyes. Did you authorize Gavin's staffing cuts? Drew hesitated. He reported things differently. Said they were overstaffed, that he was trimming for efficiency. And you never checked. I sent my assistant to do quarterly walkthroughs. She didn't report anything out of line. Xander folded his arms. And that's why you missed the fact that he was verbally abusing staff and falsifying schedules? Drew's jaw tightened. With respect, I don't appreciate the implication that I was negligent. It's not an implication, Xander said. It's an observation based on fact. Drew shifted his stance. Look, I understand you're trying to make changes. But blindsiding store managers and freezing hiring? That's going to cause chaos. Not as much chaos as a worker lying on the floor with a torn ligament while the manager eats chips in the office. That's the chaos I'm correcting. Drew's voice dropped. You're burning goodwill with your field team. If you keep undermining us publicly, you already did that to yourselves, Xander said, voice low. You had one job. Protect the people who keep this business alive. You failed. You don't get to lecture me about optics. Drew's posture stiffened. So, what now? You going to replace every district manager? No, Xander said. But I will be replacing the ones who confuse loyalty with laziness. You have 1 week to present a full audit of your stores. No assistant. No delegating. You walk every floor yourself. And if I find even one falsified report, you're done.
Drew didn't reply.
He turned and walked back to his car. Xander stood alone in the quiet dining room. He didn't sleep that night. The following afternoon, he returned to find a new hire waiting in the back office, a wiry young man with nervous eyes and a cast on his wrist. You, James? Xander asked.
Yeah.
They said I could still train on prep with the wrist brace. You can. Jess will guide you. James hesitated. I heard about what happened last week. With Tony. That really true? It is. James nodded slowly. I've had jobs where they told me not to report injuries. Said it slows everyone down. It won't happen here, Xander said. Not anymore. James looked slightly relieved. Okay.
Cool.
Jess appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. You ready? Yeah, James said, following her out. Xander watched them go. The floor was still short-staffed. The fryers still needed maintenance. And the walk-in freezer made a loud hum that probably meant a failing condenser fan. But something was different now.
People were speaking up.
And someone was finally listening. The following Tuesday, rain fell in heavy sheets across the city, soaking the sidewalks outside Store 4. Inside, the kitchen hummed with low conversation and the clatter of prep work. The air was thick with steam, a mix of fryer oil and dish sanitizer rising with the heat. Xander stood off to the side, clipboard in hand, not to inspect, but to observe. He hadn't said much since arriving that morning, and the crew had learned to stop glancing nervously every time he moved. His presence had shifted from alarming to grounding. Jess approached the prep table, eyes focused on the new hire, James, who was carefully slicing tomatoes with his non-dominant hand. You're leaning too hard on the blade, she said evenly. Let it glide. You're forcing it. James adjusted his grip, nodded, and resumed slicing. Xander watched quietly. Jess didn't hover, she watched patterns, not mistakes. She corrected once, then gave space. It was the kind of instruction that built trust without anyone realizing it. He stepped out of the way as Lena slid past him with a tray of cleaned utensils. Her posture had changed, not just her shoulders, but her eyes. She made eye contact now, nodded when someone greeted her. There was still caution in her movements, but it had softened from fear into awareness. Xander made a note and stepped into the office upstairs. Leo was already inside, setting up the small projector on the folding table. You sure you want to do this here? Leo asked. We could have rented out the downtown conference room. No, Xander replied, closing the door behind him. If they're going to hear the plan, they hear it in the place that needs it most. Within the hour, the store's core leads arrived: shift supervisors, assistant kitchen managers, and the newly promoted training reps from stores 1 through 3. Everyone fit into the room, barely. Xander stood at the front. I'm not going to talk about what went wrong. You already know. You've lived it. What I care about is what we're doing next. He clicked the remote. The screen lit up with a simple outline, 3 columns labeled People, Process, and Protection. First, we're adjusting the pay structure. Effective next payroll cycle, base wages for all hourly kitchen staff are increasing by 18%. That's non-negotiable and retroactive to the start of the month. A quiet rustle moved through the room. Second, he continued, each store will designate 2 cross-trained floaters, employees trained across 3 stations who can be deployed to any location within 25 miles during short staff emergencies. These hours will be optional, paid at time and a half, with transportation covered. A hand went up. It was Rosa, a night shift supervisor from store 2. What if someone volunteers, but their manager keeps them on the same station anyway? Happens a lot with the newer folks, they never get rotated. Managers will be evaluated quarterly based on how many of their staff are cross-certified. If it's low, they'll need to explain why. If we find gatekeeping, it's a written warning. Second time, they're out. No one spoke for a moment. Xander moved to the third column. Last, protection. Every store now has a direct reporting line to my office, anonymous or named. It goes to a secured inbox monitored by my internal HR team. If someone's harassed, discriminated against, coerced to skip breaks, or discouraged from reporting injuries, it comes straight to me. A voice from the back spoke up. It was Devin, a prep lead from Store 3. What if a manager retaliates anyway? Cuts hours or messes with the schedule after someone reports? They'll be terminated, Xander said without hesitation. No second chances. We've already let go of 2 assistant managers this week for exactly that. He let the silence stretch. You all carry this place. Not the charts, not the slogans, not the district managers.
You.
So we either put our money and protection where our mouth is, or we don't deserve you here. Someone clapped. Then the rest followed. That night, after the meeting ended, Xander slipped back downstairs. The kitchen was in cleanup mode. Jess was at the sink, elbow deep in soap suds, quietly humming to herself. Xander stepped in beside her and grabbed a towel. You always clean after meetings? She asked, not looking up. Helps me think. She rinsed a pan, then paused. People are talking. Not just here. Store 1's crew heard about the wage boost before I did. Fast news travels when it's good. I've never seen people stay late to clean up after a meeting before, she said. Usually we just nod, then bolt. That's the difference between being heard and being told. Jess leaned on the edge of the sink, glancing toward the back door. When I started here, I figured I'd stay a few months. Save up. Move on. What changed? She thought for a moment. Honestly, nothing until last week. It always felt like we were disposable. Like someone up top could just reshuffle the deck and we'd disappear. Xander folded the towel. That's on me.
It was.
But you're still here. That counts for something. Across the room, James was checking the labels on the dry stock. He looked up as Lena approached with a clipboard. She said something too quiet to hear, but he nodded, and they moved off together toward the back shelf. Jess followed his gaze. You think they'll stick around? I think they've seen worse. And now they're seeing better. She nodded once, then turned to finish the last of the pans. The next morning, Xander arrived early. The first shift hadn't clocked in yet. He walked the floor alone, checking the back corners, the walk-in, the mop sink. He wasn't looking for errors anymore. He was looking for signs that something had rooted itself. On the employee bulletin board, a new sheet had been pinned to the cork. It wasn't formatted, just handwritten. Shift coverage swap, see Jess or Tony. No one left behind. He stood in front of it for a long moment, then pulled out his phone and snapped a photo. By the end of the week, similar signs appeared in every store.
Some were typed.
Some were just marker on paper. But the message was always the same. This place doesn't run unless we run together. The following Monday, Drew submitted his store audit. Xander read it carefully store by store, hour by hour. It was thorough.
Honest.
He had corrected reporting structures, flagged 2 understaffed shifts, and included 3 employee recommendations per location. Xander called him in. Drew arrived on time, dressed plainly, no notes. You did the work, Xander said. I did, Drew replied. You've got a long way to go to earn back the trust you lost. But this is a start. I know. Xander stood. You'll stay on. But you'll report directly to me for the next 90 days. No assistants. No layers. Drew nodded once and left without fanfare. Xander looked out across the lot. Rain had cleared. The sidewalks were still wet, but the sky had cracked open to a pale blue. Inside Store 4, the buzz of the kitchen had returned. Not rushed, not panicked, just alive. There were still problems. Still long hours. Still shipments that would come in late and fryers that would break down without warning. But the people inside were no longer holding their breath. They were breathing again. Together.